ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਇੰਡੀਜੀਨੀਅਸ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਮੈਂਟਲ ਡਿਸੇਬਿਲਿਟੀ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡਾ ਮੇਜਰ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਹੈ। ਇਹਦੇ ਕਾਰਨ ਕੀ ਹੈ? ਕਿਹਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇੰਡੀਜੀਨੀਅਸ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੈਂਟਲ ਫੈਸਿਲਿਟੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ, ਮੈਂਟਲ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਸਿਸ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਡਾਕਟਰਸ ਦੀ ਅਵੇਲੇਬਿਲਿਟੀ ਘੱਟ ਹੈ। ਹੈਲਥ ਕੇਅਰ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਪੂਰਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਟ੍ਰੀਟਮੈਂਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤੀ। ਇਹਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਡੇ ਆਬਜ਼ਰਵ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ 30 ਸੈਪਟੈਂਬਰ ਨੂੰ, ਟਰੁਥ ਐਂਡ ਰੀਕਨਸੀਲੀਏਸ਼ਨ ਡੇ। ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਭ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਸਕੂਲਸ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ, ਉਹਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਟਰਾਮਾ ਇੰਡੀਜੀਨੀਅਸ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਜਨਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਟੂ ਜਨਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਪਾਸ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਗਿਆ। ਆਹ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਨੂੰ ਐਡਰੈਸ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ, ਇਹਦੇ ਤੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਕਿ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਅਗਰ ਮੈਂਟਲ ਡਿਸੇਬਿਲਿਟੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਨਨੇਸ਼ ਕੋਟਕ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਪਰਸਨਲ ਇੰਜਰੀ ਐਂਡ ਡਿਸੇਬਿਲਿਟੀ ਲਾਇਰ ਹੈ ਕੋਟਕ ਲਾਅ ਤੋਂ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਸਰਕਾਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਇੰਡੀਜੀਨੀਅਸ ਲੋਕ ਡਿਸੇਬਿਲਿਟੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੈ ਉਹਦੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬੈਨੀਫਿਟਸ ਮਿਲ ਸਕਣ, ਡਾਕਟਰ ਦੀ ਫੈਸਿਲਿਟੀ ਮਿਲ ਸਕੇ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਡੀਕਲ ਫੈਸਿਲਿਟੀ ਉਹ ਮਿਲ ਸਕਣ, ਔਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਹੈ ਮੈਂਟਲ ਟਰਾਮਾ ਦੇ ਔਰ ਡਿਸੇਬਿਲਿਟੀ ਦੇ, ਇਸ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਐਡਰੈਸ ਕਰਨ। ਸੋ ਇਹਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਲਾਇਰ, ਪਰਸਨਲ ਇੰਜਰੀ ਐਂਡ ਡਿਸੇਬਿਲਿਟੀ ਲਾਇਰ ਨਨੇਸ਼ ਕੋਟਕ ਨੇ ਕੀ ਕਿਹਾ।
September 30 is Canada's National Truth and Reconciliation Day, and this is a time to reflect on our Indigenous population and what they've been through in terms of their history and their suffering. And this is a day that occurs every year. In my opinion, we should be looking at this issue every day and not just for one day. So I want to talk about the disability aspect. Why so many Indigenous people are suffering through disability, in particular mental health related issues. Our Indigenous population is comprised of First Nation, Métis and Inuit. One of the principal causes of mental health disability amongst our Indigenous population in Canada is called intergenerational trauma. That is suffering through being taken away from families, being forced to sort of lose their language, going through physical abuse type of situations, and having their heritage pulled away from them historically. What happens with intergenerational trauma is when a child is exposed to abuse, getting away from parents, losing sort of their identity, it affects the development of the brain. And this continues into adulthood. And in fact, studies have shown that it occurs, it passes on, that trauma, the anxiety, the depression, the post-traumatic stress disorder goes to the next generation and the generation after. And this can lead to suicide, it can lead to addiction. Our Indigenous population is not well, they don't have a lot of treatment available to them as the rest of the population in Canada does when it comes to treating mental illness. There's a couple of reasons for this. One is geography, it's structural. Many are living up north in remote communities and there's a lack of resource for healthcare professionals. Secondly, it's the stigma. In many communities, in particular in our Indigenous population, admitting or seeking help for mental health related issues, there's a stigma to that and you appear weak and don't want to do it. Thirdly, it is the mistrust of our healthcare system. Historically, the Indigenous population has been harmed by our healthcare system. They've not been believed by our healthcare system. And so you have this mistrust that's passed on generation to generation. So there's not only the unavailability of help, there's the unwillingness to seek it. And I think on Truth and Reconciliation Day, as in every day, we need to reflect on those issues. There's ways we can help. Certainly it is. Always, when we're dealing with Indigenous population, understand what they've gone through, understand the trauma they may have experienced. And in our healthcare system, for example, physicians, if they're filling out a disability form, because a lot of their disability claims get denied, for example, I think they should acknowledge when they set out, okay, this is the diagnosis and the treatment, if there's a lack of treatment, to acknowledge that maybe there's intergenerational trauma and that's a reason for them not getting treatment or not seeking out treatment. Because a lot of times in my business, long-term disability claims, insurance companies will deny disability claims from Indigenous people because they say they're not getting enough treatment. This is just one example. In my opinion, what should the federal government do? I think obviously providing more resources, more doctors, more psychologists, psychiatrists in remote areas. I know that costs money, but it will do a world of good for our society at large, and particularly for our Indigenous population. The other may be to embrace some of their traditional healing, the group healing that they've grown up with, and that may be beneficial if traditional treatment can be augmented with so our contemporary treatment, I should say, allopathic treatment can be augmented with their own traditional ways of healing. These are just some suggestions, and I hope on this day and every day that we are able to reflect the really the amazing history of our Indigenous population, but also understand what they have been through over the centuries and how they continue, in fact, to be disadvantaged and to suffer. It's by being informed that we can help other people. Thank you so much. I'm Nainish Kotak of Kotak Law.